Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today talking about... Wait, hold on. Let me check the iPad nice and closely here. Good BioWare news. Are you kidding me? Whoa. All right. I mean, outside of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, we really haven't had positive BioWare news. But look at this. We're talking about things looking pretty good for Dragon Age 4. So we're going to talk about just that. We're also going to get into the report stating that there's no planned Dragon Age Legendary Edition, which... oh man, I'm going to set the ball up and tee off on that one. And with that, we're also going to talk about something more controversial happening in the BioWare community, which is the latest expansion for Star Wars The Old Republic not doing too hot. We're going to talk about all of that in today's BioWare news update. They're certainly rare, but if you're new here, ladies and gentlemen, we do talk about BioWare whenever they're in the cycle, and certainly when their games are impending, we will talk about them more and more. So consider subscribing. And now, let's talk about Dragon Age 4. Now, this report comes from Jeff Grubb of VentureBeat, where he was on his Grub Snacks show. However, that was a premium show that you would have to watch and pay for. So, I'm looking at the re-report here from Video Games Chronicle, where the title of the article is Dragon Age 4 is reportedly in very good shape ahead of a potential 2023 release. Overall, when they look at where they're supposed to be at in the development cycle, they're hitting their milestones and where they're supposed to be, and the game is on schedule. Based on Grubb's sources, Dragon Age 4 is unlikely to be released until the second half of next year at the earliest. It is still at least 18 months out from today, so not early 2023, maybe late 2023, maybe. That seems to be the earliest you can begin to expect it, he said. Grubb also claimed there are no plans for a remastered Dragon Age trilogy similar to Mass Effect Legendary Edition. He said this is partly because the Dragon Age games aren't as linked as the Mass Effect trilogy in terms of being one complete story, and were also built using different engines, meaning more work would be involved in updating them. All right, so let's start off with 2023 being the potential release year for Dragon Age 4. This is great news because in a EA's earnings call, they were kind of shooting for maybe late 2022. So to know that they're going, no, we're going to wait this one out, possibly till fall 2023. I know a lot of you are out there like me going, man, I just want to see what BioWare's next game after the debacle with Mass Effect, as well as Anthem, and then a remaster. Like, what's their next true RPG going to be like? I have to say, as impatient as I feel about that aspect, I'm glad they are taking their time, because the longer they take, I do believe the more they can undo the live service elements that were previously baked into this game. It's going to be in, let's say it comes out at fall 2023. We're talking 8 years since Dragon Age Inquisition. Of course, Inquisition had expansions, tons of DLC for it, and then they moved on to different projects. So it's not like this game has been in development for that long, but this is a huge gap for this series now, rivaling that of like Elder Scrolls 6. It's getting close, right? So I just got to say that it's good to know they're really taking their time with it, and there seems to be, I've reported this before, I guess if you want to call it a scoop, I don't really think it is, but the mentality in the studio is like they need to nail this. They need to get this one right. And obviously, you could say that without hearing anything from inside the studio, because you look at the scores, you look at the reception, you look at what happened with Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Like, clearly people love BioWare games. They just don't love their recent work. I get that. But still, it's good to know that internally, they're really pushing the idea of like, do not fuck this up. So 18 months, we're looking at pretty long wait. That's unfortunate. And one way you could have a stopgap for that wait, and another way that you could get more people into Dragon Age, is by re-releasing the games, right? Mass Effect Legendary Edition did this. Hey, it's going to be another like half a decade before we probably see the next Mass Effect game. We should probably consider remastering them, re-releasing them. Okay, good idea. They do that. Whoa, this actually sold really well. It makes sense that Dragon Age, the other BioWare trilogy sitting right there, should get the same treatment, right? But according to the report from Jeff Grubb, they're built on different engines. They're not as connected. To me, this is just a sign that, as always, I don't think EA knows what they have with BioWare. And if there's one company I wish could be extracted from a publishing arm by any, I don't care if it's PlayStation, I don't care if it's Xbox, Nintendo even, someone save BioWare, because EA clearly doesn't know what they have. Now, I think EA gets unfairly scapegoated at times. I always say this, but I think of what happened with Anthem. I think of what happened with Mass Effect Andromeda, where they gave that team at BioWare a lot of time to figure things out, right? There is an internal pressure for monetization that's slowly eased up, but they did give BioWare time to actually make these games. However, if they were a good leader, they probably wouldn't have said, hey, BioWare, it's cool. You can go make this live service Anthem game. They'd be like, no, 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 no. You make Western RPGs and you make them really well. Go make that. Go make the next Mass Effect. Go make the next Dragon Age. If you don't want to make those two, go make another RPG, because that's what you do. That's what you're really good at. That's what people love about you. So don't walk this other road. And then you look at this with Mass Effect Legendary Edition, where they go, oh, surprise, surprise, this was well above our expectations. It's Mass Effect, dude. Of course it's going to sell well. People love this trilogy. And I bet they're looking at this Dragon Age trilogy going, well, it's not worth the effort. Based off our statistics, people don't really care about this. I would put all of my life savings on the idea that if they re-released the Dragon Age trilogy as a remaster, it would sell extremely well. There's no doubt in my mind. And also, I think it's super necessary. The Dragon Age storyline is, in my opinion at least, far more complex than Mass Effect's, right? Mass Effect's is very much a planned out beginning, middle, and end. Where Dragon Age, you have Origins, then they made Dragon Age 2, which was supposed to be Dragon Age Exodus, but then it turned into Dragon Age 2 for marketing purposes, and then you have Inquisition, which is meeting all of these elements together. It's a series that is clearly all linked together. Okay, there's no denying that. There's a reason why when you say, for example, start up Dragon Age Inquisition, you can make all of the choices from Origins, from Dragon Age 2, and they are relevant in the game. Like, there's a reason for all of that. It's because they are linked together. So EA reporting this internally and Jeff Grubb picking up on this, that's ridiculous, personally, as someone who's played these games time in, time out. But yeah, EA just clearly doesn't know what they have, because I guarantee they would sell extremely well despite this false link. And not only that, I can at least understand the engine part of things. Like, you got Unreal in here, you've got Inquisition on Frostbite. But if I really took an honest look at both these BioWare trilogies, as much as I love Mass Effect and would like it to be remastered, I would argue just Mass Effect 1 needed the most touching up. As we saw when they released it, it was much more improved on a shooting level, cover level, visual level. Everything about that game was practically remade. Or when you look at Dragon Age, like, there's just so many balancing issues and easy to fix problems on at least a surface level that I think a Legendary Edition, if you will, for that trilogy would be excellent. I think of the visuals in Kirkwall. I'm like, that game looked terrible for its time. Redoing the visuals for that would do that game a huge service, because one of the biggest complaints about that game was the visual repetition. So that would be good. Hey, let's talk about Dragon Age Inquisition. Yes, the latest entry in the Dragon Age franchise, I think needing the most gameplay balancing. So for those who haven't played Inquisition, as you roam around all these various biomes, you're going to complete meaningless fetch quests that are going to give you power. Now, when you spend that power on main story stuff, that's where the good shit is. That's where all the great story content and choices and character-driven moments are baked in. And they're excellent, but they're hidden behind this horrible progression system. If BioWare just went in and said, okay, for all these quests, let's increase the power count you get by 3. Okay, let's move it up by 3. Suddenly, you're zooming through the main story a lot quicker. A lot of the bloat for this game just suddenly goes down. It's way better. It's way more enjoyable. Sometimes those meaningless fetch quests can be fun because it's just an excuse to get into combat or talk with characters. That is why I don't get this, because there's so many reasons why Dragon Age Legendary Edition deserves to live. And I hope internally something changes. They're 18 months out, though, which is reportedly the timeline it took to make Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So if they haven't decided now, then they probably never will. And that's sad, because once Dragon Age 4 comes, you know, let's be real, it could kill the series, and it could be bad where people go, I don't care about this anymore. I don't want to buy it. Again, just supporting the idea that EA has no clue what they have, because they would realistically want to have that out before the release of Dragon Age 4, capitalize on the hype, catch people up, have people who are interested say, like, do I want to try out Dragon Age 4? Let me see what the old games are like. You know, it pretty much sells itself at that point. But anyway, I could go on longer. I'm not going to. Let's talk about Star Wars The Old Republic, last but certainly not least. So there is a new update that came out, Legacy of the Sith, and I've been playing Star Wars The Old Republic for a while now. I started it back up again late last year. Obviously, some reviews took me away from it, so I haven't played in about a couple of months now, but I've been working on a re-review, because I've re-reviewed this game, I want to say 2 times, because it's such a agile game, constantly getting new expansions, and this is one of the more significant overhauls to the combat system. So a lot of people were excited. It was being tested on the PTS for quite a while, and I wasn't paying attention to the feedback there, but I didn't hear anything negative. So it was to my surprise that I saw PC Gamer report that Star Wars The Old Republic's Legacy of the Sith expansion has gone down like the holiday special. Definitely not the good comparison that you want there. Star Wars The Old Republic's Legacy of the Sith expansion has not quite been the crescendo of the MMO's 10-year anniversary celebrations BioWare was surely hoping for. While Steam has seen an upswing in positive reviews since the update arrived, reactions on the official forums, Reddit, and Twitter paint a very different picture. And you'll note that if you look at some of these like Steam reviews, that the reason they're being positively reviewed is not because of the update, they're being reviewed positively because of the rest of the game, which I would argue is pretty good. The issues players have raised are pretty consistent. Legacy of the Sith story is over and done with very quickly. There are plenty of significant bugs, the UI changes are an eyesore, and the radical changes to classes, now combat styles, are a step back. One of the main common threads is the size of the update. Framing these as expansions has been criticized before with Onslaught, but the criticism seems much louder now, with countless forum posts and replies calling it out. On Twitter, meanwhile, players are merely responding to the launch tweet with a sarcastic expansion with heavily implied air quotes. This change hasn't drawn the ire of players, but other class changes definitely have. Their transformation into combat styles came with a huge overhaul of abilities, which have been more subtractive than additive. Some have been outright removed, while others have been turned into choices, where you can only pick one of several you could have previously used freely. Fundamental abilities, the stuff that's in your core rotation, have mostly been left alone, but several combat styles do feel like they've been defanged. Perhaps this was a way to encourage players to use their secondary combat style, but getting players to use a new feature by making an old one less effective probably isn't the way to go about it. And activating different loadouts requires players to be out of combat and buy the aforementioned legacy unlock if they want to swap out of a few specific areas. It's not the same as having a single class with decent utility. So let me start off with the positive. The good thing about these changes to combat styles is that, for example, you could be, say, a Vanguard and you could become a Sith sorcerer and you could play through the Imperial Agent storyline. Like, you could mix and match a lot more in this game. It makes it much more free and open. So there is a positive to that in embracing alts. There is something there that is good. I haven't tested it, so I can't speak to my own personal experience yet, but I was looking forward to this update because they were adding Manon, my all-time favorite Star Wars planet. Thank you, KOTOR. And knowing this was set in the Old Republic era, getting a modern look at that was going to be a geek out moment for me when I finally got around to it. So I was really looking forward to it, and it's kind of disappointing to see that they sort of dropped the ball on this, because this has happened, as the article had stated, with Onslaught in the past, where they're like, expansion, big content, and it drops and you're like done with it pretty quickly. And I'm not talking service game levels where most people rip through like 50 hours of content and we can go, well, there's nothing to play, I don't know what to do now. It's like, well, you just played 50 hours of video games this week. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but like, yeah, you tore through a ton of content really quickly. So it's not even a situation like that. It's just relatively a smaller expansion, and people felt it was mismarketed. And I think this is unfortunate because this was BioWare's way of like reinvigorating the player base, and it's done the opposite. When I've been saying this for probably 5 years now, what they need to do, it's pretty obvious, and I know some people will push back on this, get this thing on consoles already. I know some people said, well, when you look at the hotbars, which I get it, I have hotbars up the sides, 2 on the bottom, it's a hotbar central. This is a hotbar MMO. You know, there's tons of inputs that you can use. It's not easy to transfer to console. It's not like Elder Scrolls Online. It's not like Final Fantasy 14 where all of your abilities are mapped to the face buttons and triggers. But look, find a way. Because that is the only way I feel that Star Wars The Old Republic can really come back in earnest. It is such an excellent MMO with great storytelling. I think the combat was serviceable, although it's kind of rinse and repeat hotbar combat where you're just like 1, 3, 4, 2, and just, okay, that's my combo. That's my combo. Just rinse and repeat for every combat scenario. I mean, it's really hard to think of many MMOs that are doing reinventive combat, although what I've played of Lost Ark was pretty nice. With that said, though, I'm hoping that they can find a way, because that is, I think, the surefire way to get this game into more hands, have more people try it out, maybe put more money into the game, which can make these expansions bigger. I get why BioWare wasn't going to all out invest in this, because it's 10 years old, and when you look at the resurgence of Final Fantasy 14, which is so big, it's so big that they've just announced another 10-year plan. 10-year plan now. And the game's been thriving for so long. Crazy to think about, but totally understandable. So Star Wars The Old Republic's not in that area, but it should be. It's got great storytelling. It's got fun combat. It's Star Wars, for God's sakes. So I don't want to see this game go down in flames. Give it at least a try on console. If it doesn't work there, then I don't know. I hope they don't end up sunsetting it. But all I'm saying is get in there and play that game, because you know, I was a KOTOR purist for a while, but going in with an open mind, there's a lot to enjoy about Star Wars The Old Republic. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I've got for you in today's BioWare news update. Let me know what you're thinking of this news down below. It's about to be a busy week, plenty to be excited about, so stay tuned and have those butts firmly planted in the seat, because you are going to not want to miss any of this. I'll talk with all of you very shortly. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.